And the functions. Do you want to do that?
Sure. Nice.
Yeah, because everybody, like, it's a opening and then the board can have.
Yeah, the part I got just doesn't have the one right, so it's just our team.
Okay, yeah, so
So
I
something
will,
that everybody decided to.
yeah, I'll bring it here. Interesting. Or that's, we'll do that then.
Okay.
And
Sounds good.
then we can- and then
You do this.
the rest of that.
So, Ralph,
We can, I can schedule it to send on the turn done.
that'll be nice.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'm just gonna check in.
Good.
Awesome. She has probably. And then once.
She really doesn't because her.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
here.
Good morning again, everybody. It looks like it slowed down. We had a few people signing in, but it just turned to 10:02, and out of respect for everybody's time, we'll just start the meeting. I know Jennifer has started the recording again one more time. If you're here, go into the chat. Jennifer has put a link to sign in for the meeting. That way we can get a good count on attendance. But I think we can go ahead and move forward. So we'll call the meeting to order at 10:02. And I saw Tracy Dillow is here, so we will start with her on her reports.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And Kathy, I sent it over with the spreadsheet. I, for whatever reason, cannot get the Splunk report to export. So I logged in and tried to send it with this meeting. I still can't get it to populate and export for me. So I will have to send that out separately after this call. I have a ticket open with my IT folks. I don't know if they'll get to it today or if it will be tomorrow, but I didn't have any luck the second time around.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that.
For this one, we still have the Pitkin Vale. We did have a meeting in November that we're going to set these up as standalone PSAPs. Right now, both Lumen and Intrado are waiting for Motorola. We have been in contact with Jeff Tucker, and he said he needs to pull together a team on his side and pull together some technical information from the PSAPs before they will be ready to re-engage in that project. So we're kind of waiting for a response from them. Once they're available, you know, I've talked to Intrado, and we have them ready to jump on as well. So hopefully we hear back soon on that one and can close this out. The transfer across state line, that's actually got a lot of traction internally now. So I had a meeting yesterday with the state of New Mexico and Motorola. They are ready to start the process and conversations to get the border of New Mexico and Colorado engaged in 911 transfers. Also, Nebraska has reached out as well. So those will probably be the first two states to go. I don't want to say simple, but Nebraska at least is Lumen and Intrado ESInet. So that one, at least we have the correct players built in. New Mexico, we will be working with Motorola. So there might be a few more steps for us, but we are looking at migrating towards this in 2024. And the last one, let's see. Oh, the NOC incident communications. I think I shared this last month. There are certain things, sorry, I think I'm getting a little bit of a cold. The FCC regulates some of what we can say, but our NOC manager did agree that this can be improved upon. And we're going to work on that as we roll into January. There were too many events and maintenance schedules planned for the month of November and December, so it wasn't something that he could focus on. But that is a top priority for the first quarter of next year. So once he works on that, I did ask if I can share it with this group, and he doesn't have any problem, you know, looking at that and seeing if it meets some more of the requests. However, we would ask you to keep in mind that there are certain regulations that he can't change, but I think it will be improved. We only have 3 little stragglers this year. Do you guys have any questions for me on any of those?
Doesn't sound like it, Tracy.
They're helping me save my voice.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the agenda. It looks like the next thing would be any update on the ECATS deployment.
I don't have a lot. I don't know if any of the PSAPs have anything. Intrado and myself have been working with individual PSAPs to gather the information we need. There are some of them that for various reasons need to wait until 2024, which is completely fine. Our requirement was to roll this out this year, which we've done. I think we've spoken to most of the PSAPs, and we're either in the process of getting their paperwork, or we understand that they're waiting for equipment or, you know, technical issues on their side. So I don't know if anyone else from Lumen has any updates on ECATS. From where I sit, it's going pretty well. Like I said, Courtney with Intrado and I are meeting with as many PSAPs as we can to help them work through this. And it seems to be going much better than it was a month ago.
That sounds great. Glad to hear that. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that? Or Tracy? Okay. In regards to the statistics, did you just want to go through them real quick, or do you want to hold off and send it out later?
I'll send it out later. Like I said, I can't
Okay.
download the stats. I can see within the tool that everything looks normal for the month of December because the levels are the same as they were last month. But I have no idea why it's not letting me export.
Okay, that sounds fine. That works for me. Sorry, I was just checking the list to see who was on, because the next item on the agenda is the strategic plan revision update. Jennifer sent out an email with 2 links in it, one to a clean copy and one to the red lines. I know that I was specifically looking for Joe and Matt, and I don't see them on the call.
Here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Matt. Sorry.
There you go. No worries.
I know specifically that Joe asked for some time to review it, probably not just for himself, but for everybody. But Jennifer, I do want to start out by saying thank you for the work that you did on that. I know that took a little bit of time, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else on the call got a chance to look at it. I think it's probably the best idea right now to leave that out there for a little bit and maybe go over it in January just to give people time to take a look at the red line version versus the clean version. And then as we talked about last month, there's not a big rush to get it done. We certainly want to get it done, but we don't have any deadlines on it other than it needs to be done every year. But we're not dedicated to like the 31st of this month. And Jennifer, if I'm not correct with that, please correct me, but that's how I understood it. So my thought is to maybe, well, it was sent out, and maybe we have like Jennifer send it out again just to make sure, you know, the people on in this group see it and are able to look at it, and then we can discuss it again in January. Does anybody have any thoughts, comments, concerns with handling it that way? Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, just to clarify, we want to vote to approve it in January then?
I think that gives everybody enough time to go through it. So yeah, I think voting to approve it in January is, I think that's a good schedule for it. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I'm going to put links in to the chat If for some reason you didn't get the email, then you can download it out of these links. One is for the red line and one is for the clean copy. So if you want to, compare back and forth, you can. But I would like to echo Kathy's thanks specifically for Matt and Joe and Jeff Irvin, who did the lion's share of all the work. And all I did was just kind of sift through what they said and come up with I wouldn't say mediation, but
Mediation.
copy.
Yeah.
Kathy did a
There
lot.
was some good discussion in the red line. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and Kathy did a lot too, I think.
Yes, Kathy did a lot too. Thank you.
A little.
It was a group effort.
It was a group effort, and but I appreciate everybody who stepped up and did something. Andrew as well. So can't leave Andrew out. So thank you, Andrew, for your work on it as well. But
can-
yeah, I think. Go
You
ahead.
can absolutely leave me out. I don't think I got you any of my notes. I'm pretty useless in this process.
No, it was a group effort, and I appreciate everybody's efforts on it. I know it's just one more thing to do, but I think we'll end up with a good document at the end. But yeah, we'll move forward with that and vote on it in January, and I think we'll be good to go. And Jennifer, thanks for putting the links in the chat for everybody. So we can move on to the next one. Is Rich on? Yes, he is. Rich from Entrado.
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, it took me a minute to get off mute.
No, that's okay. I know that mute button, man, it moves around a lot. So, so last month we talked about having an alarm at the PSAPs regarding a loss of connectivity and core services. And you said you were going to follow up with some conversations, and I just wanted to follow up with you to see if there was any movement on that or if you had any additional information.
Yeah, I did talk to our technical folks, and right now, so what that would, I think the way we talked about it last month was if that connectivity, if that network went down between the core and the PSAP itself, truly went down, that somehow there would be an indicator to the PSAP locally and the way I had it in my mind is that it could turn on a light switch, or it could generate an alarm from the router perspective. And the technology now doesn't support that basically opening or closing a physical circuit on the router to allow like a light pole to be established to it or some physical alarm. So that is not available with the routers and technology we have today. I think there's other things that we can talk about, but it would be more of so there is interconnection and between obviously Entrado and Lumen. We have e-bonded messaging between our two companies to monitor network and to monitor up down of router status. So Tracy, this may be more of a Lumen knock activity to kind of automate a message out to the PSAP or an email or something like that. But the physical nature of allowing like the router to have some sort of indicator locally is not a feature functionality of those routers today.
Okay.
Again,
Okay.
if it's really interesting, I mean, when I talk to our engineers, we can do whatever you want, but it's not immediately available. So it would take additional technology and things of that nature to design a solution for that. We could absolutely go down that path, but with design is time and cost and effort and all that stuff. So I think the first stage was, is there something we can do with what we have today? And the answer is no. But we could always design something, but along with that would come, time and cost and effort and all that stuff.
Well, I think that just given some of the things that have occurred, that's probably something, and anybody speak up, something that this group is interested in seeing. We would like to have the PSAPs be notified without having to wait for either one of the NOCs to call us to let us know that there's an issue. So
Okay.
I think the more quickly the PSAP can be notified that there's a problem, the better off we're going to be. So
Okay.
that's my thought on it. If anybody else has any other comments, concerns, please feel free to add. Matt,
And
go
that
ahead.
sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, Rich. Matt, go
No,
ahead.
no.
Okay.
No, I can wait until Rich makes his last comment.
Okay,
So-
sorry.
So if that's the requirement, just quicker notification, then I let Tracy and I take that back, because there can be things automated within the Intrado Lumen system to, I'm going to say technically there can be things. I mean, look at contractually and all obligations and all that stuff. But from a technical perspective, to like auto generate an email or an alert out to a PSAP is technically possible. And I don't know all the legal ramifications or stuff like that. So I think we can look at that internally. Tracy, let's take that one up, and I'll pull in Kim Haig to say, because there are auto generations today, obviously, both from the Lumen side and the Intrado side, for when we lose connectivity to a router. So then that's usually then dealt with by the NOC, and the NOC follows their process and procedures on how to alert the PSAP and what fashion and what time frame they have. So we'll take that one offline. As long the way I originally heard it was, can there be something local that, from the router to indicate? But if it's just an automated message from the system that a network path is down, I think that is possible with the operation procedures and technical pieces we have in place today. So I'll further research that, and Tracy, let's work on that, and we'll have an update for next time.
Yeah, well, I'll engage our NOC and probably Kevin as well.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting here listening to this, and I think this is a great idea, but I also feel like we're asking for this out of a strong sense of frustration that we are regularly not being notified that calls are not being delivered to the primary designated PSAPs as intended.
So that's that, Matt, too. If we're going to that level, then that could involve other things. So
Sure. And I don't mean to
yeah.
take us down a rabbit trail away from this topic, but I just felt so compelled. We've recently had another outage here with zero notification. So it's just, and I think a lot of us, that is why we're thinking about and asking about these kinds of solutions.
Sure. And I don't understand your specific outage, and don't know if it had anything to do with the network or the routers, or if it was a CPE side or a local issue or something like that.
Yeah. And I'm not, Rich, I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to speak to that outage right now. I'm just, I guess, venting to the ESInet users group as a whole about this problem that we're all struggling with.
Sure. But I think you bring up an amazing point that we need to define this, because again, what I took away with it is if the network goes down, the PSAP wants to be notified faster. But what I heard you say is now if it takes an alternate route path. Now that could happen because the network is down, or that could happen because the PSAP is busy, or some other policy routing was put in place, or it's a default route, or so there's a whole bunch of reasons why it could all not go to your PSAP versus the network's down. So
right. Mm-hmm.
I can work on the first one of those, which is with Lumen, to say, hey, here's a notification, here's a quicker automated notification that the network's down, versus I think what you talked about is a bigger bread basket. And we'd want to capture all those other reasons why a PSAP may not be receiving calls, and figure out a plan for action for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah, I do too. Thanks, Rich. And thanks, Matt, for bringing that up. But with that said, I think that needs to be added to the agenda as a continual topic, just so we know where we are with it, how it's moving forward. So I'll make sure to add that to the agenda, and we can discuss this monthly until we have some resolution with some of the things that are going on and what's needed by the PSAPs and what Lumen and Entrado can provide. Any other comments or questions on that? Okay. Next we have the parking lot. So Jennifer, can you bring that up?
Yeah, hold on.
That's okay.
I don't have all of my screens today, so.
I had to work off one screen the other day. I thought it was going to kill me. So. Okay, so the parking lot items, and again, I'll try to reiterate what Daryl says every time. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. Is these are items that we put in a parking lot that we want to address at some point. We want to take a look at these every month, and if anybody has any questions about them or believes that something should come out of the parking lot and be discussed, then please let us know and we can start having more conversations about it. And it looks like we have six items in there. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts on these parking lot items right now? I know that Daryl spoke, or I think Rich spoke last month. I think 3 of these and maybe 4 of them are being worked on currently. We're just not at an endpoint with those items at this point.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate there's significant progress being made with tariff language, pricing, all that stuff that needs to happen for the text and 911 service, the TDMS, geospatial routing, and I3. So those are getting tightened up pretty well. We had a meeting last month. Matt was on that call, Daryl, to kind of go over an overview of what all those piece parts are and the benefits of it. I think it's, generally speaking, I don't think I'm overstepping, but I think it's, the next few months, we're going to have a couple more reviews and then work to get that on the tariff. So that'll be an option, again, assuming everyone agrees and understands. That should be an option, first, second quarter next year for the PSAPs to move forward with those various services.
All right. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts or comments, questions on the parking lot list? Okay, hearing none, we can go back to the agenda.
Actually,
Oh,
this is Matt.
Oh, sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No, I was slow to hit the off mute button. I do want to thank Lumen and Entrado both for their part in those discussions, in preparatory discussions for moving us forward, and their work on it to date.
Yes,
And
I echo that. Thank you.
I'll speak on behalf of Entrado. I'm just excited. The technology's there. We've seen it in neighboring Lumen states like Nebraska and South Dakota, that once that PDMS gets done, the GIS routing specifically in I3 get done, we're seeing 60-70% success rates, which is very high to do GIS routing. And I think, as everybody knows on this call, once we can start doing GIS routing specifically on wireless and mobility type calls, it's just going to make the initial delivery to the correct PSAP better, right? There's no phase 1, phase 2 cell site sector routing. It moves to GIS routing. So sorry, I went off on a tangent. I'm just excited because we've done this in other states. We've seen the successful rate of those GIS fixes, and every time I see one, it's just an opportunity to route the call more accurately to the appropriate place. So technology's there. We just got to move through all the paperwork, and then it'll be available for you folks. So I'm excited for it.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, we move on to new business. The next one is a question from Jennifer. Does the Entrado ESInet equipment at the demarcation points include a firewall to protect the ESInet? Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, this actually came out of the strategic plan work, and the question was raised because there was some thought that when we had built the ESInet, that there was a firewall on the Entrado equipment to protect the ESInet from intrusion that may come from a PSAP. And we were looking for confirmation from Entrado that that is or is not the case.
So I can talk towards that in whatever detail you want. The way that and I have diagrams and all that stuff. I've had this discussion a whole bunch of times across the country, but the way our solution works is that firewall lives within our trusted side of our Entrado Lumen security infrastructure. So that border control function, which is the way the i3 defines it, is with the firewall that's within the core, and we create that encrypted tunnel that's i3 meets the i3 standards out to the router at the specific PSAP. So it is protected. There isn't a physical SBC or firewall at the PSAP location, but that BCF function occurs and is managed from the core all the way through to the Entrado Lumen provided router. So there isn't a physical device there, but we do follow the i3 standards and do secure it with firewalls and encryption from our core sites to that physical PSAP location. So if somebody tried to plug in to our router and get traffic into our core, it would be denied from our specific encryption and our configurations.
Great. That answers the question. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
And we treat just more food for thought. We treat anything that's not within the physical core as an untrusted source. So whether it's an OSP coming into us IP or whether it's a PSAP outbound, although you would think that PSAP is a trusted source in our infrastructure, it is an untrusted source. So we take it very seriously and have developed the systems and solutions to treat it as such.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to the next one, spoofing calls. And I see that Kimberly is on. Kimberly, the floor is yours.
Hi, so I just wanted to give an update, and Andrew from Lumen to get back with me, but we had seen an uptick in calls being spoofed, calling direct on 911. And it was a little interesting to us because that typically is happening, or it happened when we had our dialable trunk numbers. And so we were unsure exactly what was going on and why all of a sudden these calls were getting spoofed. So pulling at the logs and deep diving into that, and with Lumen also taking a look, the calls were all coming in from out of state, and it was truly a direct dial into the SIP extension because there are still some dialable numbers that are tied to those ESInets for troubleshooting purposes. So I don't know if Lumen wants to speak to or not, but we do have some options to remedy the issue if you're getting spoof calls into your 911 system. And so they can block it so those numbers are not dialable, but then there's going to be some other drawbacks, some repercussions. So I'm not sure if Andrew with Lumen is on, if he wanted to talk about that.
He's here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Put you on the spot. But
I was going to do it if you didn't, Kimberly.
And yeah, thanks, Kimberly. Here's, I'll just kind of read what I sent you because it's probably a bit more concise than I just pull out of my head. So yeah, the dialable numbers, when they were put in previously, were like TDM routing numbers, and they can be made non-dialable, which would effectively get rid of them. And then there's two potential repercussions of not having those numbers that the PSAP needs to be aware of. First of all, if there are any emergency centers, because these are just 10-digit numbers that have been there for a long time. So there are potentially hospitals, places that might have a phone that they've programmed to just dial that 10-digit number that will go straight to the PSAP on one of those old basically test numbers. And we don't know, Lumen, we don't know who's using that because it would be all set up by those end users. So potentially, if we make those numbers undialable for any PSAP, you may hear from any sort of emergency centers in the area that were using those numbers, pointed to the pseudo number. So just be aware of that. And then the other part of that is those numbers, would no longer work for test calls by the Lumen 911 knock. So there probably would just need to be someone on site at the PSAP, that the 911 knock would have to call via another method to confirm that 911 calls are making it through. So those were the two things just wanted to make people aware of.
Thanks, Andrew. Matt, go ahead.
Andrew, if those numbers are made non-dialable, how difficult and how much time would it take, say, for testing purposes with the knock or Lumen otherwise? How hard and how long would it take to make them dialable for the short term of that testing?
That would have to be, I don't know. It's not something that could be done quick. It would probably, making them non-dialable gets rid of them. So they would have to be built back in, and that's a provisioning process. And so it would not be fast. I mean, days or weeks to create an order and get it through the system.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So I guess big picture perspective, if your PSAP is getting inundated with spoof calls directly on your 911 SIP sessions, it could be this. It could be that they have a dialable number that somehow they were able to get, and now they're making their way into the 911 system. So for us, they ended up being a lot of abandoned 911 calls. But still, it was taking 911 resources. So we haven't decided yet what we're going to do in these scenarios. We're trying to just figure out some alternate options when they happen. But there was a period of time where we had a couple of dozen hitting one of our PSAPs. So just so everyone's aware that you do have that option, but there are those repercussions. So thanks, Andrew, for running through those.
And I can tell you just from seeing this in various places across the country, if you have kind of a legacy dialable number into the selective router, whyever it was made 20, 30 years ago, those robo dials are hitting them because not only are they available, but they're always answered. Just, I think like anybody on this call knows, you don't answer them, sometimes your number will go off the list. But because these are constantly and consistently answered, obviously because they're 911, then you end up seeing kind of an exponential thing happen where it then happens more and more and more. So that's what we've seen this in, not just in Colorado, multiple places across the country where those legacy dialable numbers into the 911 system are still out there, and those robocalls hit them, they get answered, and then they just more and more occur.
Thanks, Rich. Go ahead, Matt.
This question is for Tracy, Andrew, and Rich. In your experiences where these have been non-dialable, and you use that alternate method that Andrew described, where the knock has to call someone on site and information is relayed about the success or failure of issues with 911 call testing. Has that really been problematic, or has it worked well? the alternate method?
I haven't had really much experience with it. I do know that there are, some areas around the country that Lumen's the provider where they have this, and I haven't heard a lot of feedback other than it's an adjustment um, for for the customer and for the knock, but it's not unheard of. So I can I can maybe reach out to the knock or to maybe some others that may have feedback, but I haven't heard any up to this point.
Yeah, I haven't heard good or bad. The first instance for me was basically the research that Andrew found out as well. So we definitely could talk to Carl in our knock and see if he has any data.
Same with me here as well. Typically, if it's a primary PSAP and you just need a call to be made, it hasn't really been an issue because there's always somebody at the PSAP, and as long as they're located in the PSAP boundary that they need to make the 911 call, it's been great. It's worked fine. Yeah.
So Tracy and Andrew, I would love to hear back from your resources, Carl or whomever, about any risk or harm that comes from making these numbers non-dialable for that alternate method. I think it just would help us all better make our own judgments about whether or not we want to do this for our PSAPs.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I think that would be the best scenario is, just to be able to get you everything we can so you can make an informed decision. So, yeah, we'll do that and send that information to you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for that good conversation. And thank you, Kimberly, for bringing this to our attention. Appreciate that. Anything else? Any other conversation, comments on that? If not, we'll move forward. Okay, next is open discussion, which we've had plenty of, but I will ask anyway. Questions or concerns from any of the PSAPs to Lumen? Jennifer, go ahead.
I actually don't have any concerns from PSAPs to Lumen, but I do have something for open discussion when we're done with all of that.
Okay. All right. I don't hear anything from the PSAPs to Lumen. How about from Lumen to the PSAPs?
This
Okay.
is Jeff Winkleman. I have nothing.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thanks. I just wanted to say in this group, and I think we talked about it at the task force, but not in this group, I am putting together regional focused discussions on contingent and abandonment routing. We did this in the Western region, got together and mapped out all of our contingent routing and our abandonment routing plans to make sure that we weren't overwhelming one PSAP, and to ensure that everybody knew what their routing plans were and could follow up with Lumen to get those on file. So I am putting those together starting in January, and I want to thank Lumen and Entrado staffing for agreeing to come to those meetings so that they can explain the differences, because we have some new players in the PSAP world, and I want to make sure that they all understand what the differences are between all the routing paths. I imagine we'll be talking about volume-based routing as well, and then the hope is that all the PSAPs will be able to either update their routing plans or confirm that what we have on file, or I'm sorry, what Lumen has on file is correct. So just wanted to let you know that that is happening. I started with the southeastern and the south central regions, but I hope to get through all of the areas in the state by the end of the first quarter. So if anybody has any questions about that, I think it'll be worthwhile. I also think it'll be helpful because in one of the recent outages that we had that affected 19 of our PSAPs, We had one PSAP that was down and they rolled to the other PSAP and that PSAP was down as well. And so I think the timeliness of these conversations and it just underscores the need to make sure that all of our routing plans are current and up to date with Lumen. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Carl, go ahead.
Not so much a question, but a comment. I mean, we were one of them that went down, and it normally rolls to Grand Junction. They were down, but because that was set up, it rolled to Vail, and the calls were able to get answered. So it is a good thing to do.
Carl, just because I happen to have you here, do you know if Vail ended up taking Grand Junction calls too?
Cindy's on the line. She could answer. From what I heard,
Oh,
I think they rolled to Aurora, but I'm not sure.
Okay, I can't see all the people because I'm presenting, so it makes it tough. Thank you.
Yes, we rolled to Aurora. We did not go to Vail. We also didn't go to Westco. And that was my understanding was our secondary after Garco, Jennifer, was that we would go to Westco. They were up and we kept calling them and asking if they were getting our calls and they were not. But also some of our calls, like with T-Mobile, they came in on our admin lines.
So Lumen and Entrado folks on the call, I encourage you to hear what's going on and maybe look into why some of that routing did not perform as designed. And I'm not sure why the wireless calls would go somewhere different.
Yeah, and some just from a high level, and we can talk more about it in this overall meeting. But high level, if T-Mobile certain wireless calls are going to PSTN dialable numbers, that would typically be outside of Lumen's control. And the reason I say that is there's so many different points here of where an alternate or default routing decision could be made. What I suspect for that one is that, and I can't say, and don't quote me on it because I don't know, but typically if there's a problem from a wireless carrier terminating a call into a system, whether that be a legacy system or a next gen system, then they also have a default routing path. So for instance, again, I don't know if this happened there, but if this wireless carrier trunk group went down, then their 911 trunk group went down into the aggregation point, then their system will say, I can't get to 911. What is my failover? And I would go then to a PSTN number. I don't believe anything is set up in our system to go to a PSTN routable number. I think it's always set to go to a 911 PSAP. So that's my suggestion there, but there's different points of alternate routing and default routing. And typically if a carrier routed directly to an admin number, that's the carrier level default, not a Lumen or Entrado level default.
That's my understanding too, although I am curious to see what's found about Wesco being second alternate for BES traffic.
I will say, sorry, Joseph, that is an option in our system that we can alternately or default route to a PSTN number. So when we go through this meeting in January of different options, some PSAPs across the country have said, if my PSAP equipment is down, my CPE is down for some reason, or my network to my CPE is down, I would rather go to my dialable number at my same PSAP versus going to an alternate PSAP. That is a solution within our system to do that. I don't think Colorado is set up like that, but we do have the capability to do that.
Go ahead, Joe.
So the comment I was making is we ought to talk to T-Mobile and figure out what they were doing and if we can give them our preferences for default routing when they can't get through. In response to the comment that was just made, can PSAPs decide to route differently based on whether the 911 lines are down, whether it's an overflow situation, whether it's abandonment? Is there only one routing option, or can they elect for each type of reason they might want to have calls flow?
I get to I can talk towards that. There's really two separate scenarios. One is abandonment. We can have a completely separate route list or the same alternate route list for abandonment versus unreachable. And what I mean by unreachable, then that could include a couple of different items. The PSAP, the network goes down and the CPE is unreachable, or the network is up and the CPE isn't responding, or the network is up, we send a call to the CPE and the CPE sends back a SIP error message. So there's really those two different buckets. Either it's abandoned or it's unreachable, and it could be unreachable for multiple options, but you can separate it into those two, but you can't separate it into like, oh, it's busy versus it's down, the network's down. Those are bucketed into one because we attempt to send it to PSAP and either we get an error response back or we don't get any response back. That's one default alternate method. And then there's another alternate method for abandonment.
So I just heard that Garfield was supposed to go to, I think it was Wesco, but instead they went to Vail because Wesco is also down.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if they're not being able to answer calls even when they're rolling to their admin lines? Is that just the end of the option?
The admin line is the end of the option because it's not. Because once you send it out into the PSTN world, that is in essence a completed call. We don't have the visibility into the infrastructure to know when it was answered, if it was busy, if it's ringing for a specific period of time. I believe there is a ring no answer setting, but I believe that's also a global setting. So in essence, once it goes out to the PSTN, that's the last route we can take, because we can't monitor what happens to the call after we send it out to the PSTN.
Thanks.
Yep. So a lot of folks have chosen it, but there is definitely some risk involved if that's not a 24/7 answered with the appropriate people to answer the calls. Yep.
And Rich, if I could just add on, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's, several layers of contingency where you can say, if this, if the first layer, please roll to this comm center. And if that doesn't work, then roll to this comm center up to, is it 3 or 4?
It's actually, well, I can tell you technically what the system can do is up to 10. I'm not sure if there's a unique agreement or regulations in Colorado specifically. And there's again, we'll have more of these conversations, but there's things to say, okay, you're going to do it in a hierarchy, i.e. you're going to send all calls to PSAP A, and once that's busy or unresponsive, you're going to send it to B, and once that's busy or unresponsive, you send it to C. Then we can do a load share scenario, where you say, okay, you have these 4 PSAPs and you're going to equally distribute them amongst these 4 PSAPs. That's another option. When we get into I3, so we may want, once we progress next year with I3 and tariffs and people start signing up, we may want to have another discussion, Jennifer, because there are some options around, depending if, again, the PSAP and the GIS authorities would have to help us manage separate boundaries, but we can do them geographically too. So the system has the capability to say, if you abandon, you can put the northwest side of your PSAP to this PSAP, the southeast to this, and the central to this. So there's some cool options when we get into GIS routing and turn on that capability to also do alternate routing based on GIS.
Okay, Rich, that last part's got me salivating.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I could hear you salivating from here, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
My GIS propeller head hat's starting to turn.
So
that's why, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
On the routing where you're going to one, and if that's full to another, can the routing to the admin lines be a downstream one, a second or third option?
Sure. Yep. And we could have it set up so you could say try PSAP A, and then once it attempts PSAP A, it follows PSAP's A configuration. So let's say they have a ring no timeout of a minute. So if it's ringing for a minute, the ring no answer clicks in, then it'll go to PSAP B. Same thing, and maybe that PSAP B ring no answer is set to 30 seconds. So it'll ring for another 30 seconds. Then that timer will flip, and then you could have as the third option or the fourth option to go to the PSTN. It's kind of a final last ditch effort if your previous routes weren't answered.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion on that? All right. Thanks, Jennifer, for bringing that up. Next, we have public comment. This is the time where any non-voting members are welcome to provide comments. Do we have any non-voting members who have anything that they'd like to bring up? Okay, not hearing anything. Oh, Laura, go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry about that. I just
Okay.
like to make a request if I could. If when everybody's signing in, can you put your affiliated agency or organization behind your name? I have Sarah attending with me, and not only do I not know a lot of you, but I think that it would be helpful for Sarah as well to just to put some context behind everyone's name.
Can
Do
I
you
ask
mean-
for an option there? Can you put Lumen and Entrado there? I went to go click that, and maybe I missed it, but I couldn't find anything for somebody not being a PSAP. Sorry.
I usually don't do it because I don't know what to put.
Okay, so we're talking about when you sign in, like for the agenda, or I'm not sorry, the attendance.
Not for the attendance, but when you sign into the meeting itself, and it says it asks you for what display
For your screen
you want
name.
for your screen name.
Oh, the screen
so
name.
Rich and
Okay.
Jennifer both have Dora behind their name. I'm sorry, Jennifer has Dora and Rich has Entrado. That's super helpful.
We can certainly ask for people to do that. I'll have to get on this at a different time to try and figure out how to do that. I'm happy my name's up there. So
I love your
That's where-
Christmas tree and fireplace background.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Kathy,
But
Kathy, Kathy, the way I did it,
you want.
Kathy,
I think you
the
can
way I did it,
actually- Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
sorry, the way I did is when I just put my name in there, I put Rich Johnston space Entrado. So I put it as part of my name.
okay, I'll see if I can figure that out.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Anybody else with any comments, questions, concerns? All right, looks like we're going to get done a little bit early. I do want to take this time to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope you have great holiday season and you get to spend time with family, friends, etc. You've all been great to work with this year. Appreciate it, and just happy holidays to everybody. And with that, I'll give you back 7 minutes of your day, and we are adjourned for December. See you after the new year.
Here, here. Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
folks.
everybody. Be safe.
So you didn't need me at all.
I always need you. Mm-hmm.